fast.
All right, guys, good morning.
Morning.
All right, so I wanted to kind of go over something that I saw yesterday that we need to kind of resolve a little bit here. When you go out to a customer's house, and I'm using Renar's, I told him I was going to use him as an example, and it's not Renar's fault, it's just the way he, I guess, has been taught or shown, and maybe some of you have too, so I want to kind of stop this from happening because it really makes it difficult for us to really know what's going on. In Service Titan, this is the job he was on yesterday. And I go into Service Titan and I see that the job is completed for $0, okay? Oops, I didn't mean to back that up. But basically, so, I go into the job, I look at these jobs, pretty much every day I kind of go through your jobs and see what's in there, what's not. And certain things I'm like, okay, I know there's some training issues for everybody, but this is one of the things, when you look at this, he's got tons of pictures in here, and I can look at everything from, or what I'm looking at is, number one, what time did he get there, okay? He arrived at the job at 1:02 p.m., according to this. So that's the first step that's kind of important for you guys, is to make sure when you get to the job you arrive there. And there's a couple of reasons, and as we get further into Service Titan and we get through some more training that's going to happen, the reasons that we need to see that you're there, there's liability issues. If we ever were to go to court in any issue with a customer, when did you arrive, when did you leave, how long were you there? Some customers can say, hey, he was here until, for 5 minutes, didn't do any work, right? All the notes and stuff in here is kind of a record of everything we do at everyone's house, right? So it really kind of starts with when you arrive. Basically, then he's putting all these pictures in, downloading stuff, doing all this different good things here. He edits the invoice is the first thing I noticed. I go, he edits the invoice. It's a $0 invoice. What would you be editing the invoice for? Okay, so there's I can go into the invoice and see that it says here, invoice summary, supply duct 10 by 28 has corrosion, no water present, but seems like it's damaged from previous plumbing leak. Flat elbow and straight piece needs to be replaced, but to see how many pieces damaged would need to take old ducts apart or camera. Okay? So you notice I went to invoice. Did you see an estimate in there? There's no estimate. We did nothing other than put some notes down and close out the job. So number one, without an estimate or a recommendation to the customer, it's kind of hard to it's kind of hard for it to be back on our radar again, because I have people in the office that I can follow up on estimates, for an example. They're not going to go in and search this way, line by line by line by line by line, and say, oh, there's an invoice there. It's a $0 invoice. What is it? What does it say? Because a lot of you guys, I guess, what I also found out, were told to, and this is where I also found out, because I was looking at it, trying to figure it out. So then it puts in here, Renar's completed the job. He completed the job himself. If you have an estimate to do, because after I talked to Renar's, he says, no, I got to go back and do an estimate. I still have to get an estimate, but I got to get pricing and things like this. So in his mind, he's closing this job out, ready for the next job, because he thinks, I got to go back and do an estimate anyway. I can't do it today because I don't have the parts, prices, and cost for the parts and stuff like that. I got to talk to Kevin. Okay. So my question was, did you call Kevin? Did you even attempt to call Kevin to get the pricing so we can do an estimate? Because when is the best time to do an estimate?
Right there.
Guys, you're with a customer, you're spending time with him, you're building a relationship with them. The last thing you want to do is walk out the door without giving them an estimate. It just doesn't make sense. We can't be going to a customer's house. Now, there may be some anomalies, some little differences that you can't. They want you to get back to them, but you spent the time and they know it's coming. But when you close out the job, now you got to remember where you were at, whatever, yesterday or the day before. They want an estimate. I got to put that on my radar. It's not on your board anymore because it's closed. So there's no way for you to even remember that. And now something else comes up. You get another job the next morning. It's just gonna. It's a wasted call. It can be a wasted call. Okay. So what I saw also, he says, ready for next call, 10-8. So when you go into the 10.8 that's in here, you can actually see the same notes that he just put in there. I mean, as he's 10.8'd, okay? So it looks like he then, now he's created an estimate, because I went and told him yesterday, so after, this is last night in the evening after I left, he went back into the job and then, was creating an estimate, and now here's the estimate. Okay, but we had to reopen the job up. I had to tell him, I said, Renard, you can't just have an invoice for $0 and put the notes in there, because we can't see that unless I were to go line by line, find that there was an actual invoice, right? And then read it if there's anything in there. And a lot of times when you close out a job, you don't put anything in an invoice, right? So if we're charging them for the $89 or whatever, that's one thing maybe you put in there what that is, and that's your invoice. But for a $0 invoice, normally that means you did nothing. That's what an invoice, $0 invoice is. You did nothing, right? So that's one of my point is you don't do an invoice, you do an estimate before you do an invoice. The estimate can turn into something or not. And then if you end up closing out the job as a $0 because we couldn't get the job, there should be notes in there. I sent the estimate to the customer, they're gonna get back to us, and then we'll basically, we can follow up on a day, we can put something in the system that allows us to follow up. But doing it this way, the way he had done it, makes it kind of difficult for us to follow up and even, move forward with the customer potentially, okay? So I kind of wanted to show you guys that, because it's just something that when I saw it, I'm like, I didn't even realize he did anything until I went into the invoice and saw those notes. And by the way, there's the little history up here where you guys can leave your notes. That is probably where you should leave notes before you 10.8 and leave the job. If you put your notes there and basically pin it to the top, that'll be the first thing we read when we click on that job. That's the best way to do it. Okay, so you don't have to write an invoice out or put it in an invoice in your 10.8 notes. You can do it if you want. You can copy from there to here, it doesn't matter. You can copy and paste if you're putting in your 10.8 notes, but also put it in the history on the top. So no matter who goes in there, I have an estimate to write up, because if you would have put that in there, I would have moved on and said, okay, cool. Have an estimate to write up, getting pricing will be done by today. But he still shouldn't have closed it out. What he should have done is rescheduled it until he got the invoice out. Okay, if we rescheduled the job, it's still the same job. When you closed out the job, either we have to recall that job and we have to know what he's talking about, but in the notes there was nothing there for me to determine that. Does that make sense? Okay, so if you put the notes up and you pin it to the top, I need to leave an estimate for this. This is the whole 10 by 28 thing, whatever he put in there. This is rusted out, so on and so on. If you were to put those notes up there, you can copy those notes and paste them into your 10.8 as well if you want. So everyone can, if you, just so that it's in there. But bottom line is, no one's going to look at your 10.8 unless we really needed to. But it's kind of this looking for this needle in a haystack type of thing. What's going on in this call? What happened in this call? I see all these pictures, so he did something. I just don't know what. And I see no estimate. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where we have to try to go with it. Because if the call's still open, and I see notes on the top saying I need to give an estimate, I'm waiting on pricing from Kevin, okay, great. Now I know what's going on. And when I schedule it the next day or whatever I'm going to find out, I can always say, hey, Kevin, did you get this? Do you know you need to get some pricing from ours? And then we can move forward. If not, it just kind of got closed out and it could have been just lost forever. So there could be other jobs like that have happened that I don't have a clue about. Because I'm trying to go through and see these old estimates. If we can maybe talk to the customer, have you done it yet? Are you still looking, thinking about it? What can we do? But when you have something like that, there's no way. I mean, it'll take forever to go through every call and see what we maybe did somewhere in the 10.8 notes or something, and it's not in the, or you close out a $0 invoice. So I'm assuming there's nothing on it, but there's writing in there, but there's nothing, no dollars and no tasks.
Question: if it's over $1,000, the channel leader comes in. How does that whole flow work then? If he has to give an estimate right there and then? No,
the channel leader's the one who should be coming there and doing it.
Okay, but if we got 3 guys and they're all doing a job.
Yeah, that's, you're running. I mean, you're going to be, and it doesn't matter, you can't do them all at the exact same time, but they can call you, you can get on the phone, hey, I'll be there in an hour, I'm following up, finishing up with a customer here.
Okay.
Okay. You know what, can you reschedule this customer for 5 o'clock? Because I'm going to be busy until then.
All right.
I'll come out and, I'll meet you out there, and that's what you got to do.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's fine to reschedule stuff, because you can't be in 3 places at once, I get that.
Yeah.
But you have to, you know, manage your day and say, hey, you know what, I'm with a customer now, and I have one after this at 2, I can meet you at 4, and, you know, so go ahead and do another call for now, tell them we'll be back at 4 o'clock, if that's okay with them, and then we'll wrap this thing up.
Okay.
So, you know, but it's gotta be in the system, guys, so that's just, please make sure you have notes in there, that's the most important part for us, because when I look at it, I see what's going on or what happened at the call. Even if it's a negative thing, they don't want us back, you know, at least we know. And then is it something, do I need to call the customer and find out, did we do something wrong, or whatever the case is. If the notes are there, right on top, pinned at the top, it's real easy to go in there and not have to go through every single detail of every single call. Make sense? Okay.
One thing I want to add to this is that when you, let's say you close out a call and you still have to put together an estimate and then you recreate the call, it's screwing up our marketing reports because we're seeing more than one call now. So we think that, you know, hey, we got 2 calls when really we had 1. You know, so when we look at our the effect of our marketing dollars, these reports become meaningless when we look at the volume of calls that we had, because really there could be a job that got scheduled 6 times without being rescheduled. So now it looks like instead of the same job being rescheduled, it looks like 6 different jobs for the same customer. So keep that in mind as well. That's why this stuff is really, really critical that it gets entered in properly.
Right, and the same thing goes with what I also found yesterday in a few jobs, and I'm just throwing this out, and I can't remember the name of the customer off the top of my head. I want to say, actually I think it was, I do remember, but I fixed it so you're not going to see it completely. When I go into customer, and this one you guys will probably remember the name just by, when I type it in here. Everybody remembers that? Everybody seen that name? See this 9740 negative? They haven't fixed it yet, but I'll show you what happened.
I can't see that far.
Deborah Seuss.
Yeah.
You can't see this far?
Okay.
Okay, so Deborah Seuss, and I went in here, and basically what happened on here is we had this $974 job that was sold. And we took a deposit of $97.40. Okay, because originally we were going to go in and install, move a brine tank or something for the water softener. It was a $974 job, but then the job ended up being this $6,488 job. Okay, there was 2 different parts to the job. But we collected on one job or sold the estimate, and then basically what happened was that job just stayed there as rescheduled, the $974. We created a whole new job for the $6,488 job, which really was part of the $974. Rather than editing that one and adjusting it, we created a whole nother job. Okay, and then actually there was a 3rd job in there somewhere too that had $0. I think here, water filtration and treatment. So all of these things happened like, you know, within a month or whatever, the time we were talking to them and trying to figure everything out. So we took that deposit on the first job. We didn't finish that job. We never did it. We went to the $6,000 job and completed that. We got payment, green sky, all that good stuff was great. Now we owe this customer $97 because that never got brought over to be the same job. So, you know, I go in here and I'm saying, why did we owe her $97? And so I had to delete the task, the 974, because that went into the other job. And then I have to go in and say, okay, now I've got to refund her $97 and let her know on a credit card, and then we have to close this thing out. Which means I have to call WorldPay and do all this. And all we had to do for that was go back into this $974 job, take that task away, add another task, which was all the $6,488. That $97 would have been included in that price, and everything would have been great. But we seem to be doing this type of thing a lot. It's like we open up a job. I talked to accounting yesterday, I was talking to dispatch yesterday about a lot of the flow of how all this happens. Some of it's for us out in the field, we're not quite doing things all the same, some of you are doing it different than others. In here they're doing it a little bit different and they were taught different ways, and I've been trying to adjust things as I see them. but there's so many things. This system has a lot of capabilities for reporting, like Kevin was saying, not just for marketing, but for operations. I can see how you guys are doing. And we're talking about how you guys are doing. There's a dashboard on there that we're not using because we're not even close to being ready yet. That will really tell me how you guys are performing as individuals, okay? Not only are your sales in there, but it also talks about how many calls you have and basically gives you a closing rate and all of these different things that say how you're doing, how you're performing. So out of all these calls you go to 10 calls, how many of them are you actually getting money on? How many of them are canceling? How many are doing this? How many are doing that? So when we're just having the same person have 6 calls and really we're only having 1 call, like Kevin was saying, it's messing up all the numbers. The complete dashboard is just a wreck. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. So I can't look at that stuff to see how you guys are really doing. Only way I can do that is when I get my payroll each week, I can kind of say, okay, all right, yeah, you did this much service volume. I can see that. You know, so that's really how I've been going on it lately, is because this stuff isn't where it needs to be. So I'm either going to go up there to Service Titan and spend a day with them and see, because there's a lot of changes that have happened since I was on here before. And I've been going through videos, but it's just, it's really time consuming to go through videos because some of it's really monotonous and time consuming, and I've already been through that part, but I just want to see a certain part that's in there somewhere. So I kind of was thinking about this last night, how I'm going to do it, but I think that the way, if I go down there or have them come here, I'm going to go do a couple of jobs from the time they come in, the call comes in, to the time the invoice is supposed to be closed out in the main office, 100%. And if I do 2 or 3 calls like that with them through the whole flow and see everyone's job, accounting, you know, you guys all the way, dispatch, and see who's supposed to get what, because I'm having the girls tell me, oh, they should be doing this, and they're saying, no, they should be doing this, and it's just like, well, wait a minute, you know, I know how we used to do it, but I want to see what Service Titan is telling me is the best way to get this reporting done correctly.
If we get a $98 service assessment, let's say, gets there, he assesses it, he's there for an hour, and then he gives them an estimate and they sign off on the estimate. Does that $98 get applied or deducted off the estimate, or how does it? Because a lot of them, they're going to say, well, you were here, does that 98 apply to the estimate?
Yes, the $98 or $89, whatever it is, applies to the estimate. If we sell it, that service fee goes towards the estimate. So basically, all they have to do is we just delete the $89.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean,
was just
that's easy to
curious
do.
about that, yeah.
Make it a 0 because now it's included in the price.
Right.
The assessment is included in the price.
So when they give their estimate, do they include the $89 so we don't lose that, or is it just?
We don't consider losing it. If we got the job, we're not losing it. I mean, it's part of the job. But if we're just going out there and assessing it, and then they say, well, I'll think about it, I'm gonna get 3 more estimates, we're gonna get that $89 if they decide not to use us.
Right, but if they do use this, that
Then
$89 is still 1 hour's worth of work.
No, but that's part of the assessment to get the job. It's okay if we're getting the job.
Okay,
It's not okay if we don't get the job.
right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just was wondering.
And some companies don't even have that fee, and we waive that fee often, especially because we want to get in the door. That's our goal, is to get in the door and get the job.
Right,
But there are people out there that are just shoppers,
Yeah.
and those are the ones that we don't want
have
to.
to be careful of.
Yeah, I mean, we want to get something for our time in that case.
Yeah.
All right. So if we have a customer that we don't have a signed contract with, signed invoice, you know, for the work that we're going to do, we technically, you know, don't have to get paid. They don't have to pay us. So I want you guys to realize that the way this process works with Service Titan is, you need to show the customer with the iPad. That's what this whole system does, is it allows you to give them the options. Here's my 3 estimates. Which one would you prefer? They can look at them, they can see the pricing, you can explain it to them. And most of that should be, again, the bigger jobs are going to be done with Kevin and Jesse over here, John. Every time I look over to see his name on there. But they're going to be done, you know, they're going to be doing that. The estimate should be done. You guys work the estimate together because you know how much money you're going to make and how much the job's going to take, time, and all that stuff is being talked amongst yourselves. But once that person goes in and closes the deal with them and sits down with the customer needs to sign that. If they can't sign it, let's say that, you know what, maybe they don't have internet, you don't have a Wi-Fi signal, all of that, if we have to bring it to them directly, we can print a copy at the office, send it in the mail, whatever the case is, and get a hard signature, we can always take that back and scan it and put it in the system. But we need to have a signed contract. That's the bottom line. There's a lot of these I'm seeing of people doing like a little line or a little V or a little, you know. If you have something, the one exception can be if we have correspondence with them, you know, per phone conversation, Jane Smith, okay? You can write that in there, okay, per Jane Smith, you know, and then everything's time-stamped that way, because that goes in our system and stays in our system. But you have to say who the person is that you spoke to on there. And that usually will cover us for, you know, smaller jobs in particular, not like larger jobs. Larger jobs, I still want a signature. Okay, we need to get a signature on larger jobs. That's because those are the ones that'll kill us if we don't get paid.
Do we carry paper backup invoices in the trucks in
No.
case of that?
No.
Also, if we collect a 10% deposit,
Yeah, I was
which
doing
we
that.
normally do, that's sort of like ink on paper too. 'Cause
Right.
they're admitting that, hey, you got 10%. You can put that in the signature box as well if the customer's not there.
And then in addition for credit cards, if you have a customer, let's say it's a landlord-tenant situation, okay? You go in and the tenant's there, you talk to the landlord on the phone, and they're saying, yeah, I approved the work. Or the tenant says, oh, the landlord approved the work, you know, they'll just pay us back or whatever. Well, we need to figure out how we're getting paid, by whom. That's the biggest part of this system. For us, how are we gonna get paid? So I need to get a credit card on file before I start the work. You know, whoever's gonna pay, I need to get a credit card on file. So even if we don't charge anything until we're done, we need to get that credit card information so that we have it, okay? That kind of gives us, if they're giving us their credit card, it's kind of the same thing. They're basically saying, hey, you know, I know you're doing work, that's why I gave you my credit card. So we need to have something though that authorizes the work, and that credit card, if it's a, you know, not their house type of thing, well, whoever's responsible for the payment, I need to get a credit card on file for them. That's it. Just make that happen every time. Because right now we're chasing money. We're saying, well, who's going to pay this? Well, they're going to pay it. No, you're going to pay it. No, they're going to pay it. It's your responsibility. No, it's their responsibility. So we're trying to collect money that way. We can't do it.
Probably shouldn't discuss with the tenant anyway, if we're dealing with.
Not unless it's
landlord.
tenant's paying for it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that whoever the landlord is, I need to be able to get a hold of them, get a contact information so I can get a credit card on file if they authorize the work, that type of thing. Okay, so the other thing is, I need to finish up here, I know, but the other thing is payroll. I wanted to tell you guys, Wells Fargo has been down since Wednesday at 5 p.m. I have Wells Fargo personally as well. My wife did not get her direct deposit today, yet. It's supposed to happen, usually gets in like last night at, you know, late at night, so she sees it first thing this morning. I talked to Wells Fargo yesterday around 3:15, 3:30. They said that they don't know, they don't have a time frame, that they were hoping to have it done by the end of yesterday. I tried to transfer money myself from my account. Tina went down to the bank and talked to them yesterday. We were trying to transfer money to payroll. At this point, I don't know what's going to happen. I have a couple of options that I'm going to try this morning, because basically they wouldn't even let her in the bank transfer money to our payroll company. They wouldn't let us. So what I'm going to try to do something different, where the payroll company, rather than, because they haven't even printed checks because they haven't gotten the money in the bank. They don't typically print checks until we transfer the money over on Thursdays. We couldn't do it yesterday. So one of the options may be for us is if they give us the information, maybe we can write checks out of our own account, which is still Wells Fargo. And I think Wells Fargo will honor those checks. I don't have because we have the money in there, but then we'll pay them a separate check for their fees, because they have processing fees and all the stuff that they did to make all the numbers right and all that stuff. So that's an option I'm going to try this morning. I'm just kind of letting you guys know ahead of time so that you don't get surprised if you come this afternoon and checks aren't here yet. I don't know what time it's going to be, but we're going to work very hard to get it done as quickly as we can. Hopefully Wells Fargo will get their shit straight. We can just be done with it, because they can print checks right away once we give them the money. But we can't give them the money if we can't transfer it, because they won't let us do it at the bank either. So we're kind of trying to figure out what we're going to do on that. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up on it. You got anything, Kevin?
Not really. Just wanted to reiterate that in Service Titan, there are courses. And then there's a test after the course. You know, you guys really benefit you to go through and take the ones that are pertinent to you. It's very, very helpful, especially when it's creating proposals. A lot of times, like Mike the other day, for me, he made it really easy for me as a channel leader, because he had everything lined up for me, and then I had to make some corrections, and it was just fast. And I was able to do a good presentation to the homeowner, and he was already on top of it. And so when you have those options laid out, and simplified, you know, is the key for the homeowner, and that's where this training comes in. You know, when those things are simplified, if the customer's confused, guess what choice they make? None. That's what happens with a confused customer every single time. So if you're putting together proposals that are confusing, like literally I have done that, and then I had to start all over again. Because I'm looking at it and I'm like, I'm confused and I'm the technician. So you have to break it down Barney style for the customer. Always consider that. So a lot of this training will help, I think, you do that. And as simple as you can make it for the customer to come to a decision, to understand the difference between this estimate and that estimate without too many details. You know, this one provides this one provides that, you know. And the simpler you make it, the more likely they are to make a good choice, which is a yes. Whether it's the least option or the best option, you know, that's really, really critical. So if you focus in on practicing those things, especially for guys like you who are new, you know, not even running calls yet, you don't want to start practicing with the customer. That's the worst thing you could do, because you're going to be out at your truck for an hour, and what's the customer going to think?
What the hell is this guy doing?
What the hell is this guy? And then because then they're thinking, you know, my God, this is going to cost me a lot of money. Because in their minds, the longer it takes for you to put that proposal together, the more it's going to cost. And all these little actions, by the way, whether good or bad, they affect the outcome. So when you can put together a presentation quickly, and I think having that in, you know, that knowledge, that, you know, that ability, or maybe you're running a call, you might want to put together proposals before you get there, knowing what it might be or something like that. But you definitely don't want to be taking long periods of time. You know, when putting these proposals together, just make it quick, make it very, you know, obvious as to the difference between the choices, and that's pretty much it. I think that's all I want to really cover today. I don't want to get into any other subjects.
I'm just going to throw in body odor, guys. It's started
yeah.
to come to my attention that this is, you know, you guys are working hard. You're up in attics. You're doing things. I get it. Like I said, you have to bring some deodorant, some mouthwash, whatever you got to do. Gum. You guys have got it. You can't be offending customers. If a customer calls in here and tells me that your guy stunk, I mean, to the point where I had to walk away, that's pretty bad. But you're not going to do work there is what's going to happen.
That's exactly what's going to happen.
They're not going to want you there.
They're backing up, and they're thinking to themselves, I can't wait till this is over.
Yeah.
So
You're
when
not
you
listening to what you're saying.
when you,
that's for sure.
exactly, and when you get close to them with the iPad and everything else, because you have to, man, they're thinking no choice here. You know,
If they're doing the Michael Jackson, they're not doing the Michael Jackson.
yeah.
Yeah, you guys, and the same thing with your
No
breath. I
choice
mean,
here.
you have to be aware of your breath and your body odor, because if you you know, people who drink coffee and certain things, their body just, that acid and everything, it does something different to your breath, and you don't even realize it. So go in with the thought of, do I have bad breath? Okay, just in case I have bad breath, I'm gonna gargle, or I'm gonna put a piece of gum in, or whatever the case is, a mint, and just, I mean, make it a pleasant experience for the customer, you know? I mean, just think about it yourselves. How would you guys ever smell someone who has bad breath and you don't want to say something to them, especially if you don't know them? I mean, they may not say anything to you, but they're going to be regretting getting that close, that close with you, trying to go over the
Bad breath
estimates.
just melting the side of your face.
You know, I'm just telling you guys, it's something you may not think of on a regular basis, but you need to.
Yeah.
You know, you guys are service people, you're with the customer, you're in front of them all the time. You know, be aware, okay?
Or you can
Please.
buy a microphone, one of those
Yeah.
corners, you know.
That's not very close. But yeah, we want to make it a comfortable thing for the customer, and it's not comfortable when they have to smell body odor or bad breath.
Give them your respirator.
The carbon filter. Here, you're gonna wanna put this on.
All right. So we got a lot of stuff going on today. Thank goodness it is Friday, and like I'll work on payroll, get that stuff going. But I just wanted to please take considerations of the notes and everything we talked about, and do the training, guys. It will help you. And like I said, I'm going to get more the whole process. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything on that, because I want to make sure that we're doing it the best that we can, so that we can see how everyone's doing. And
If
get
you get
reporting done
trained,
right.
you can come and train us, see?
I will. I mean, I will a little bit at a time, like I am. But there's so much involved in the system that I can't train you on everything. It just doesn't work. Yeah, so that's it. Let's get going. Let's get to work. Make some things happen.
Monday night from 4:30 to 7, they offer dinner at Calca AC Pro. They have a heat pump class that's free. Just so you know.
Yeah, that's coming up on Monday.
Yeah.
The 20 SEER class come in.